You know, when we look at these massive infrastructure projects, I'm talking about like a hydroelectric dam or a huge refinery, we always marvel at the engineering.
Right, the steel, the concrete.
Exactly, the sheer scale of it all.
Yeah.
But I've been digging into the paperwork behind them, and I'm starting to think the engineering is almost the easy part. The real structure holding it all up isn't steel, it's risk.
That is well, a very cynical way to look at it, but you're not wrong.
Well, I've been reading the FEIC Silver Book.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically, I've been kind of obsessing over Clause 4, the contractor. And honestly, it reads less like a contract and more like a dare.
A dare, I like that.
It basically says to the builder, here's the project. If anything goes wrong, and I mean anything, it's your problem. Don't call us.
It is definitely the nuclear option of standard construction contracts. You're talking about the conditions of contract for EPC turnkey projects, and that word turnkey is doing a lot of heavy lifting.
Right, turnkey.
Yeah.
I mean, in real estate, that just means you get keys to a clean house. But here, in the Silver Book world, it implies something way more aggressive about who's on the hook for what.
In this context, turnkey means the employer, the client with the money, wants to just show up at the end, turn a key, and have a perfectly working facility. They don't want to be involved in the how.
So no phone calls about bad weather or the price of copper going up.
Absolutely not. And they definitely don't want to hear about you finding some weird soil underground. Clause 4 is the engine that drives that whole transfer of risk.
So I guess the mission for this deep dive is to figure out why anyone would ever sign this. We're going to unpack Clause 4 to see what total responsibility actually means on paper.
From the money they hold over your head to the weirdly specific rules about finding dinosaur bones.
Exactly. But let's start at the core. Clause 4.1.
The general obligations.
It sounds kind of dry, but the language is so specific. It says the works must be fit for the purposes for which they are intended. Now that sounds obvious, right?
It sounds reasonable.
If I hire you to build a wall, it should, be a wall. But legally, fitness for purpose is a bit of a track, isn't it?
It's a huge elevation of your duty. In a more traditional contract, say the FEI or FIDIC, you're responsible for workmanship.
Meaning,
if you build the wall exactly to the architect's drawings with the right bricks, and it falls over because the architect's math was wrong, you're generally safe. You did your job with reasonable skill and care.
but not under the Silver Book's Clause 4.1.
No. Under the Silver Book, the contractor is usually the designer and the builder. You don't just follow the blueprint, you make the blueprint. So fitness for purpose means you are guaranteeing the final result.
So if I build a power plant, and it looks perfect, but it only generates 490 megawatts instead of the 500 megawatts the employer asked for,
You're in breach. It doesn't matter how hard you tried or how well you built it. You guaranteed an outcome, not an effort.
that seems to be the theme here. You're not being paid for trying. You're paid for certainty. And that brings us to the clause that I think actually scares me the most. Clause 4.1, unforeseeable difficulties.
Ah, yes. The unforeseeable physical conditions clause, or maybe the lack of one.
Okay, I had to read this like 3 times to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. In most contracts, if you're digging a foundation and you hit a massive layer of granite you didn't expect,
Or a pocket of toxic waste that wasn't on any survey.
right, you can stop, put your hand up, and ask for more time and money to deal with it.
Correct. That's a standard shared risk model. The employer owns the site, so they own the risk of what's buried in it.
But Clause 4.1 in the Silver Book just flips the table. It says the contractor is deemed to have obtained all necessary information. And then it says the contract price shall not be adjusted for any unforeseen difficulties.
That word deemed is doing so much work there. It's a legal fiction. The contract is saying, we don't care if you actually knew about the granite. For legal purposes, we are pretending that you did.
So if I hit that granite and it costs me, I don't know, an extra $5 million to get through it,
Yeah.
that's my problem.
It's coming right out of your profit margin, every single penny. And you still have to finish on time.
But how is that even rational? If something is truly unforeseeable, meaning no amount of testing could have possibly found it, how can I be responsible?
Because the employer is buying certainty. They're saying, my budget is $500 million. I cannot go back to my board and ask for 505. So they force you, the contractor, to price that risk in from the very beginning.
Which links right into Clause 4.11, the sufficiency of the contract price.
Exactly. By signing, you are confirming your price covers everything, even the stuff you don't know about yet. A smart contractor isn't just charging for steel and labor, they're adding a huge risk premium to their bid.
So the employer pays more up front to guarantee they won't pay more later.
That is the trade-off. They're buying an insurance policy that's disguised as a construction contract.
Okay, but let's take the worst case. I'm the contractor. I've hit the granite. My budget is shot. I'm bleeding cash. What stops me from just packing up my tools and walking away? How does the employer sleep at night knowing they've pushed me to the absolute brink?
They sleep very soundly because of Clause 4.2,
Yeah.
performance security.
This is the skin of the game part.
Precisely. This happens right away. Clause 4.2.1 says you have to deliver this security within 28 days of signing. It's usually a bank guarantee or an on-demand bond.
And we're not talking about a small deposit here. This is, what, 10, 15% of the whole project value?
It can easily be. On a billion-dollar project, that's $100 million of your credit just locked up. And it stays locked up for a very long time. The text says it has to be valid until the performance certificate is issued.
Which is a key detail, because that's not when the building is finished.
No, and that trips people up. You finish construction and get a taking over certificate, but then you enter the defects notification period a year, maybe 2, where you fix any bugs that pop up. That security has to stay active the whole time.
So if a pipe bursts 18 months later and I don't want to fix it,
They can still call on that bond?
I saw a note in there about the amount changing, a sort of moving goalpost.
Yes, that's in 4.2. If the total contract price changes by more than 20% because of agreed-upon variations, the security amount has to be adjusted up or down to match.
That makes sense. Bigger project, bigger insurance policy.
Yeah.
But what about the trigger? Can the employer just take the money whenever they want?
It depends on the bond itself, but the Silver Book, in Clause 4.2.2, tries to put some limits on it. They can only claim for specific defaults.
Look what?
Like if you fail to pay an amount you owe, or if you don't fix a problem after they've given you 42 days notice.
42 days. FIDIC really loves their multiples of 7.
They do, but here's the scary part for a contractor. These are often on-demand bonds. The bank doesn't investigate the claim. If the employer shows up with the right piece of paper, the bank pays. Full stop.
So I could wake up one morning and my account is just empty.
Yes. Your only option then is to sue the employer to get it back, based on the indemnity in the contract. But in the short term, the cash is gone. And in construction, cash flow is oxygen.
That's a lethal amount of leverage.
It's designed to be.
Let's shift from the money to the people on the ground. Because you can't build a refinery by yourself. You've got an army of subcontractors.
Right.
And Clause 4.4 seems to really hammer home that one throat to choke philosophy.
Single point of responsibility.
It says the contractor is responsible for all acts of subcontractors as if they were your own.
This is huge for an employer. In other models, if the air conditioning fails, the main contractor might say, hey, I hired a good AC company, go sue them.
Not my problem.
Exactly. The Silver Book just cuts that off. The employer's contract is with you, not the AC guy. If the AC fails, you failed.
Okay, that I can get my head around. But then there's Clause 4.5, nominated subcontractors. This feels contradictory. The whole point is the employer stays out of it, but here they are saying you must use this specific company for the turbines.
It's a real tension point. Sometimes the employer wants a very specific piece of technology, or they have a relationship with a supplier, so they nominate a sub and instruct the main contractor to use them.
But wait, if I'm the main contractor and I'm liable for everything, why on earth would I accept liability for a company I didn't even choose?
You shouldn't. And this is where the contract actually gives you a shield. Clause 4.5.1 lets the contractor raise a reasonable objection.
The veto power.
It is, but you need a good reason. You can't just say, I don't like their logo.
So what's a good reason?
For example, if the nominated sub refuses to indemnify you against their own negligence, or if you have good reason to believe they're incompetent or about to go bankrupt.
So if the employer says, use Bob's Electric, and Bob won't sign a contract saying you'll pay if he burns the place down, I can say no.
Exactly. And then the employer has to either back down or, more commonly, agree to indemnify you for any problems Bob causes.
So the risk gets pushed back up to the employer.
It forces them to put their money where their mouth is.
There's another interesting part about those nominated subs. Something about the employer acting like a debt collector.
Yeah, in 4.5.3, it's a protection for the sub. The employer can demand proof that you're paying them. If you can't provide it, the employer might just pay the sub directly and deduct it from your next payment.
Stops the main contractor from using the little guy's money to solve their own cash flow problems.
A very, very common game in this industry.
Okay, let's move from the people out to the physical site. I'm looking at clause 4.15, access routes. Again, this just feels like the employer washing their hands of reality.
It says the contractor is deemed to have satisfied himself about the suitability of access roads.
So let's say I need to bring a 200-ton transformer to the site. The only road in has a rickety old bridge rated for 50 tons.
That bridge is your problem. You have to pay to reinforce it, get the permits, and if your truck breaks it, you have to pay to fix it.
And the employer pays zero.
Zero. Their position is, we hired you to deliver a working plant. How you get the parts there is up to you.
That basically expands the site to include every public road leading to it.
It does. And if you get delayed because the local government won't issue a permit,
Yeah.
that's your delay, no extension of time.
It's brutal. But there's one area where the Silver Book suddenly gets really generous. Clause 4.23.
The fossils clause.
Right. Archaeological and geological findings. It lists fossils, coins, antiquities. If I'm digging and I find a Roman vase, I have to stop. But unlike the granite we talked about, here the employer pays me for the delay.
It seems totally inconsistent, doesn't it? Hard rock is your problem, a Roman vase is their problem.
So what's the difference? Why?
It's pure behavioral economics. The rock is just an obstacle. It has no value. But the fossil or the vase has historical or national value. If the contract said, if you find a fossil, it's your cost to deal with it, what would a rational contractor do?
Pretend they never saw it. Bulldoze right through it.
Exactly. You'd smash history to bits to protect your schedule. So the contract realigns the incentives. It says, if you find treasure, stop. We'll cover your costs. It removes the penalty for doing the right thing.
That's fascinating. It's an admission that the contractor is just an economic animal responding to incentives.
That's all a contract is, really. A programming language for human behavior.
Speaking of behavior, let's talk about reporting. Clause 4.20, progress reports.
This is one of the most burdensome parts of the whole contract.
I was looking at the list. It's not just an email. It's charts, photographs, video recordings, safety stats.
Comparisons of actual versus planned progress, detailed write-ups of every problem.
It sounds like you need a whole department just to write the report.
You do. On a big project, project controls is a massive team. But you have to see why. Under the Silver Book, the employer is hands-off. They aren't on-site every day checking your work.
So this report is their eyes and ears.
It's the flight recorder. It is the only official record of what's happening. If there's a huge dispute 3 years from now, the arbitrators aren't going to care what people remember. They're going to read the clause 4.20 fee reports.
So if it wasn't in the monthly report, it basically didn't happen.
Precisely. Which means you have a huge burden to document your own. Well, sometimes your own demise.
And finally, just quickly, the systems for quality and safety. Clauses 4.8 and 4.9.
Safety clause 4.8 is pretty standard but strict. You need a health and safety manual within 21 days. But 4.9, quality management, is where you see that turnkey idea again.
It says the contractor has to set up a quality assurance system. But the part that jumped out at me was the auditing.
Internal audits. The contractor has to audit themselves.
So you're marking your own homework.
In a way, yes. They have to run audits at least every 6 months to prove they're following their own rules, and they have to give the results to the employer.
It reinforces that idea of the contractor as a self-contained island. The employer isn't the police. The contractor is the citizen and the police force all in one.
That is the goal. The employer just wants the keys at the end.
So let's zoom out. We've gone through Clause 4. The contractor is responsible for the design being fit for purpose. They own the ground under the site. They own the roads leading to the site. They own their subcontractors.
And they have to put up millions in security to back it all up. When you lay it all out like that, the contractor sounds less like a builder and more like an insurance company.
An insurance company that also has to pour concrete.
Right. They're taking all these disparate risks, weather, politics, geology, labor, and bundling them up. They sell the employer a policy that says, I will deliver this asset for price X no matter what happens.
From the employer side, the motivation is totally clear. It's certainty.
Absolute certainty. They can go to their investors and say, the price is fixed, and they are willing to pay a premium for that peace of mind.
But that's the catch, isn't it? The premium.
It is.
Because if I'm a contractor booting on a Silver Book job, and I know I am on the hook for absolutely everything, I'm not going to bid the actual cost of the work.
You can't. You'd go bankrupt on your first project.
I'm going to bid the cost of the work plus a massive buffer for all the things that might go wrong.
You have to.
So here's the thought I want to leave everyone with. We talk about the Silver Book creating cost certainty. The employer knows exactly what the final bill will be.
Yes.
But is that certainty actually efficient? If every single bidder is adding, say, a 20 or 30% fear premium to their price to cover risks that may never even happen,
Yeah.
the employer actually saving money?
Yeah.
Or are they just paying the most expensive price possible to avoid the possibility of a difficult conversation later?
That is the billion-dollar question. Very often, the employer pays for risks that never materialize, all so they can sleep at night.
It turns out, peace of mind is probably the most expensive building material there is. Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. We'll see you on the next project.
If you're interested in the templates, please visit our shop. The link is in the description.
Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and see next time.